Hi.
Hello guys, if you are brand new to my channel, my name is Nikki and this is my book nook. Y'all, it is quite literally 9:25 on November 1st. I just got home from the airport, literally walked in 5 minutes ago. I just got back from New York City. I was there seeing Harry Styles on Halloween. I went to the Harryween dress party concert. It was like the most incredible 48 hours of my life being there, being at the concert. It was amazing. But it's November 1st, it's the end of October, it's literally November now. I have to give you guys my wrap up as always, so literally gonna film this, upload it. It'll probably have minimal edits because I just wanna get it to you guys. But yeah, let's talk about all the books I read this month. So this wasn't a huge month for me, like numbers wise, but I did read a couple of really thick books in the beginning of the month. You're gonna see as I'm talking about these. Was a little rough for me. I got into a major slump. I just read a couple books in a row at the end of last month and at the beginning of this month that I just like didn't vibe with, and it just put me in such a rut. But I got out of it towards the end of the month. I read some really great things and then finished so strong, and it was a great time. But yes, the very first book I read this month, technically, I actually didn't finish it, and I'll talk about that, but it was The Atlas 6 by Olive Blake. I made a whole video ranting about this book if you care to hear my like in-depth thoughts on it, but this was my most anticipated read probably all year. I literally bought it so long ago and I was saving it to read in October because I wanted the spooky vibes, because it's like about witches. The beginning seemed so promising, but it just fell so flat for me and I had to DNF it like 2/3 of the way through. Basically, this book is about this like society of witches. It's called the Alexandrian Society, and every year or every decade, I can't remember at this point, 6 new witches, like the best of the best in the world, are chosen. This is an urban fantasy, so it's set in real life. So there's different types of witches. This was like a whole big kind of confusing world, to be honest, but 6 witches are chosen that are like the best, and they come and they spend a year like protecting the society because it has all the like most important archives about everything having to do with the world and history and just important things. And at the end of the year, one of them doesn't get invited to stay and the other 5 do. So it sounded interesting, like the concept, everything that I had kind of like, from what I'd read about it, it seemed like it was going to be a combination of like American Horror Story Coven and kind of like Harry Potter, because it is kind of like a boarding school sort of aspect, because they all 6 are like living at the society and like the different types of magic. I was so intrigued, but the book is from 6 different perspectives. It's from each, we see like the point of view of each of the 6 characters that are chosen to be at this school. And kind of all of them, somebody commented on my review video of this saying like all the characters were just the same person in different fonts, and like I couldn't agree more. There was no like distinguish, like they all have the same kind of just like annoying, pretentious personalities. So the 6 point of views was just not necessary, and I felt like I read this book for so long and just like absolutely nothing happened. I would feel like I was reading for like hours and it would be like 20 pages and it was so rough, and I just was like, what is the point of this book? And I couldn't finish. I literally had to stop. I read this for I think 9 or 10 days and I was 2/3 of the way through and I had to give up on it, and it made me really sad. But it's a beautiful cover. Just simply wasn't for me. So I moved on to some more witchy vibes after that. The next 2 books that I read, I actually did a book battle on my channel, which is one of the things I've been doing lately and really liking. So I wanted to do like a witchy rom-com edition if you want to watch that. I'll also link it up here somewhere. But the first book I read was the xhex. I had seen this literally everywhere. It was one of the book of the months this month. And it just looked really cute. It seemed like a fun read for Halloween, and it really was. It wasn't like the greatest thing I've ever read, but like it really put me in the mood. I kind of feel like as I'm getting older, I don't know, holidays just seem kind of non-existent. I feel like when you're not in school anymore and you're just like working every day, unless you like do stuff to put you in like the spirit, it just feels like another day. So this book totally got me like excited for Halloween. I felt like I was like watching a ABC Family 31 Days of Halloween movie. It was just very cute. Basically the story is about a girl named Vivian. She is a witch, and the beginning of the story takes place 9 years in the past, where Vivian has just been broken up with by her boyfriend, or I guess she technically broke up with him. Basically, he informs her that he is betrothed to someone else because he is from a very powerful witch family, and his parents have basically promised him to marry another girl back home, but he loves Vivian, but like has to go handle that, and she is so upset, furious, like ends it, whatever. So the beginning of this book is basically her like in a bathtub with a glass of wine, just like mourning her relationship, and it's really like funny. And her cousin, she lives with her cousin and her aunt, and they own this like witch store. Nobody knows they're witches, like obviously, but it's like they have this store that has like tarot cards and like crystals and very like kitschy witchy things. So it's kind of like ironic and cute, but she lives with them. And so her cousin is like, suck it up, you're Vivian, you got this. So they end up like jokingly hexing the ex-boyfriend. His name is Reese. And it turns out it wasn't a joke, because he actually does end up getting hexed. And 9 years later, Reese has to actually come back to this town. He's from Wales, but he has to come back to this town because like every decade or every 100 years, his family like helped found this town. It was very like Mystic Falls vibes, like Founders Day sort of thing, small town. I want to say it was even in Georgia, but his family has to come back once every 100 years and like re-bless the land for the magic to like continue. So Reese basically has to return to this town where he knows Vivian is, and so they come into contact with each other. And because Reese is cursed, like all of these crazy things start happening, and it's very silly, it's very cute. Like Vivian is fighting her feelings for him because, you know, it's her ex, she wants to be over him, but then just like crazy things start happening and they have to kind of like team up to save the day, and it gets like pretty steamy, and it was very cute. Honestly, like if it wasn't Halloween, I kind of wouldn't recommend reading this. Like it's just okay, I guess is my point. Like it was probably a 3.5 for me. But because I read it during Halloween, it was like a 4.5 because it just put me in like such a happy, like giddy, Halloween-y type of mood. But yeah, xhex, it was very cute. After that, I read Witch Please. And this book was just, if I've got to be honest, the worst book I've read all year. Like one of the worst books I've ever read. What a positive way to start. I don't even like really care to explain this book. It's really similar to the xhex in the way that it's about this girl Danica, her and her cousin. I think it's literally her cousin also. They also own a shop that is witch themed, but their shop is a repair shop, so they like use their magic to repair things, and it's kind of genius, to be honest. It's called Fix It Witches. And basically one day this guy Titus, who is like the hottest guy in town, he owns a bakery down the street called Sugar Daddy's. He comes in to the shop because his oven's broken, and then quite literally, I can't tell you anything else this book is about. That's literally it. Like Danica and Titus have this like drawn out relationship for no reason, because I guess Danica like has a lot of pressure on her from her grandma. It's kind of frowned upon in this book to like date, if you're a witch, you're supposed to like marry a witch. It's frowned upon to like marry a non-witch mortal for some reason, and that's kind of it. They have this like budding relationship throughout the book, and the whole time she's like, oh, I don't know, I'll disappoint my grandmother if I marry a mortal. Oh, but I like him. And then like there were some really cringy, spicy scenes, and it was bad. Like I didn't want to finish it with peace and love. I wouldn't have finished it if I wasn't doing the book battle and comparing it in the video. It was a really rough time, just simply wouldn't recommend it. So I won't spend any more time on it. I would give it like a 1 star. So I promise that's the end of the negativity for this video. I told you the beginning of the month was rough. Now let's move on to the good stuff. Because I had gotten in such a slump from the end of September and the beginning of October, I was like, I'm just gonna go to one of my tried and trues. I need something to dig me out of this hole. You'll never guess who it was. Colleen Hoover. I read Regretting You. This one had been on my list for a while. I've read like quite a few Colleen Hoover books now. I want to say like 6 or 7, but I still get comments and DMs from you guys every day being like, have you read this one yet? What about this one? Have you read this one? And I'm like, I will get to all of them, guys, I promise. But this one I feel like is the one that most recently I've been getting asked about. So I just finally decided to read it, and it was so freaking good. This book is kind of like hard to explain without giving away spoilers, but this book is just like really different from Colleen Hoover's other books. It is a romance to some extent, but it really focuses on like the relationship between mothers and daughters. The story is told from 2 different perspectives, this perspective of Morgan and the perspective of her daughter Clara, we get to see Morgan in the beginning of the story like as a teenager, and she's like in a relationship with her high school sweetheart, and they have like a friend group, and in her friend group it's like her sister is dating this other guy who is her soon-to-be husband's best friend. I'm getting too in the weeds here, but basically whatever. Morgan finds out when she's 16 or 17 that she is pregnant, and it completely like turns her world upside down, obviously. And then we kind of flash forward now, and we immediately go to Clara's perspective, 17 or 18 years in the future, and Clara is Morgan's daughter. And you get to see, because it's interesting because you see like Morgan's perspective like when she was Clara's age, and so you like grow attached to Morgan and you like relate to her and you get it, and now you see Clara being like a teenager. But yeah, so much of this book is kind of like navigating the relationship between like a mother and a daughter, and being a daughter myself, I found it to be really kind of eye-opening and interesting, because we all, like, most daughters go through that phase when they're a teenager of just like butting heads with their mom, thinking their mom is like stupid or like doesn't understand them and just like doesn't make any sense and is way too strict, or just like not supportive, which it just, you know, your mama loves you, she cares about you, she wants what's best for you. And so it's really cool to like read this book from the perspective of a mom, because you like, when you see it through the mom's eyes, you like totally understand her reasoning and you're like, Clara, snap out of it. But then when you read like Clara's perspective as the teenager, you can totally relate to like when you were a teenager and you felt that certain way about your mom. Like, it was just a good book for thinking of like other people's perspectives on things and like having some patience. And yeah, there's also kind of like two love stories going on at the same time. Clara having her first kind of real high school relationship, and then a kind of like second chance sort of situation with Morgan. It's really, really good. So many twists and turns. A few jaw-dropping moments that blew me away, as always, with Colleen Hoover. It was just super good. If you like Colleen Hoover and you haven't read this one yet, just do it. I think I gave it 4 stars in the end. It wasn't like my favorite of hers, but it was great. Next, I read A Shadow in the Ember by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Literally have been waiting for this book for so long, counting down the minutes, counting down the seconds. This book is the first book in the prequel series to From Blood and Ash. So basically, you could read this book if you wanted to, like by itself without having read Blood and Ash. However, I would not recommend it. I think From Blood and Ash like builds the world better. I always feel like the author knows what they're doing. Like, they release books in a certain order for a reason, and I always recommend when people like ask me what books they should read first, I'm like, read them in publication order. Like, the author is telling a story, they know what they're doing. Even though this is a prequel, I say read the first 3 books in the Blood and Ash series that are currently out, and then going to this. But if you insist on reading this first, basically what it's about, this is such a vast world, it's really hard to explain. It's a high fantasy. It follows this girl named Seraphina. She goes by Sarah, and she basically was born into this family, this royal family in this land, and her ancestors, basically like the kingdom has been dealing with rot for a very long time. Like, just the crops are dying, like everything is just withering away. People are struggling to make food, get food. Like, it's just been like a devastating thing to the kingdom for a very long time, and it's just been getting worse over time. And pretty much her ancestors like made a deal years and years ago that like with the god of death. So there is kind of like mythology in this a little bit, but it's like new mythology. It's not Greek mythology, but it's kind of similar. And they made a deal with the primal god of death, basically that he would get to marry one of the firstborn women in the ancestry line, and she would become his consort, and that would then stop the rot, basically. So Seraphina is that chosen one. She has been raised as a maiden. She wears a veil all the time, and she has been prepped and primed to basically marry this god of death. But I guess part of the deal with that is like, she has to kill him. The god's like only weakness is love. The big iconic line from this book is make him fall in love, become his weakness, and then end him. So she basically is supposed to make him fall in love with her and then kill him, and that's supposedly supposed to stop the rot, but he doesn't realize that she's supposed to kill him. Whatever. So like Seraphina like reaches the age where he's supposed to come. The god of death shows up. He has his like face covered, and he's like, I don't need a consort, and basically like rejects her, and then, but she doesn't know why. Like, he just basically is like, I don't need a consort, and leaves. And then her family basically like disowns her, thinks that she did something wrong to make him like not want to take the deal, and is like, you're responsible for the kingdom dying, whatever. And so then she ends up like becoming a handmaiden. Like they act like she's not a princess anymore, and she is like a very badass female lead. She's very similar to Poppy in Blood and Ash, like very, very similar, but not as good because Poppy is like, mwah, everything to me. But yeah, we kind of follow Seraphina, and she ends up getting into all sorts of adventures with, she encounters this other god, and it's the whole thing. I literally can't try to explain it to you right now. I have a reading vlog on this if you've read it already and you'd like to follow along and see all my reactions. Very good, very spicy. I liked it a lot, but to me it didn't hold a candle to From Blood and Ash. Like that book to me is just like god tier, like one of the absolute best books I've ever read in my life. 5 stars, like 10 stars out of 5, that good. This I gave 4 star, still really good. But again, I say read the Blood and Ash series and then come back to this, because it does fill in some gaps, and I feel like when they do come together and connect, it'll be really good. And I do think the next book in this series, this is the Flesh and Fire series, will be bomb. I just think this was kind of like a big introduction into what's gonna be like really good later. So I don't know if anything I said just made sense. I tried. And the last 3 books I read this month were the last 3 books in the Devil's Night series by Penelope Douglas. I have been putting off finishing this series for so long because I love it with my entire heart and soul, and I knew I was gonna be devastated when I finished it. Like, there is not a single book or series or anything on my channel that I get more DMs and comments, messages about than the Devil's Night series. Like, you guys love this series, and so many of you tell me that like you found it and found Penelope Douglas through me, which blows my mind because she's my favorite author in this series. Just like, I love it with my whole heart. And so I finally did it. I finally finished it. I was purposely waiting until Devil's Night because I wanted to read it like around that time. Devil's Night is the night before Halloween, if you don't know. So yeah, I did a whole reading vlog reading these books. It'll be up in like a day or 2. This was a thick boy. This book was like 730 pages, and then, so it's 3 different books. This is the first novella. It's basically like book 3.5 in the series, and then Nightfall, big thick boy, is number 4, and then Fire Night is another novella. It's 4.5 basically, or I guess 5. It takes place in the future. Stunning, amazing. I can't explain this. If you haven't read the rest of the series, I'm not even gonna try, because these are not standalones. The first book in this series, Corrupt, a lot of you guys asked me this, and I'm just gonna say it right here. Corrupt is the first book in the Devil's Night series. It is a standalone. You can 100% read Corrupt by itself. The other books in the series, you cannot read by themselves. You have to read all the other previous books if you're gonna read any book that's not the first book. Each of these books focuses on a different boy in this group of 4 boys and a different like relationship they're having, but there is very much like an overarching story that follows throughout the entire books. And if you try to like jump in and read book 3, which so many of you guys asked me about, like, can I just read Kill Switch? I just want to read Kill Switch. I get it, that book is wild and amazing, but like, no, you can't just read Kill Switch. You have to read Corrupt and Hideaway, then Kill Switch, and then if you want to, Nightfall. And I completely recommend it because best book in the series, Will Grayson III, literally my favorite guy times 1,000. This book, I just finished it like on the plane while I was coming back from New York, and it blew my mind. It made my heart explode. I love this series, and I'm so sad that it's over, but like, I literally know I'm gonna read it over and over again. I love it so much. It's so worth it. It's really crazy. It's not for everybody. I know that for sure. It's got some very like dark themes. It's very wild. It's very twisted, but I'm obsessed with it, so I don't know what that says about me. It's amazing. But yes, that is all the books that I read in the month of October. It was a very spooky and spicy month. Kind of cute. I'll probably put that in the title, but yeah. It was a good month. I read a couple of thick ones, not as many books as I normally read, but I've been super busy, and honestly, I'm gonna be super busy next month, and that's okay. We're just going with the flow. I'm excited about some things coming up that I'm planning to read. I've got some like vlogs coming out, lots of fun things on this channel. But yeah, I think that is it for me today. I'm literally going to immediately edit this so I can get it posted today on November 1st, so you guys can watch it. It'll probably be at midnight, so that'll be fun. But yeah, that is it. I will talk to you guys very soon.